So it's been said that the only thing more expensive than driving a 6.0 is not driving a 6.0. What can happen? Number one, the number one thing that happens for folks that don't drive their trucks is they go out to start it without charging up the batteries. Lead acid batteries lose 5 to 15% of their charge just sitting for 7 days, not connected to nothing. So even if you disconnect the battery, it's still not there. What you really should do is have it on a solar panel or some kind of desulfating smart charger, those little wall wart chargers, things like a battery minder, battery tender. The plug-in versions are available on our site. The solar panels we just haven't gotten into for whatever reason. You can hop on Amazon and buy one. So you got that. The second thing that happens is the turbo vanes like to rust. And so it likes to basically stick. Well, rust maybe, but stick minimally. And so all of a sudden your turbo's locked up, and when you go to start the truck and drive it, all of a sudden you can't get the turbo vanes to unstick, and so now you're taking it apart and taking care of it that way. The third thing is much more common to all engines, and that is that you lose the oil film barrier on all of your bearings and whatnots. So when you go ahead and you engage that starter for the very first time and forever, it's metal against freaking metal. Now you're not going to get ignition until 500 psi, so you're going to get a fully lubricated bottom end before the possibility of ignition happens. However, that metal against metal wear is not to be understated, not to be under internalized. So if there's a way that you can start your truck and run it, and not let it sit, that would be better for you. Alternatively, if any motor that's sitting for more than, I'll call it a month, if there's some kind of way that you can go ahead and get oil in all the passageways without enabling the possibility of rotation first, that will make a huge difference in the longevity of your motor overall. But, is anything going to happen to the FICM, for example, sitting? No. Is anything going to happen to, the fuel pump itself? No. Now, can your fuel get algae in it and all this kind of stuff? Well, yeah. So you should put, some kind of de-algae, anti-algae compound, additive inside the fuel tank, some kind of fuel stabilizer, something like that. And just realize the possible nastiness that you're creating for yourself in the fuel system by letting it sit. But are there really, specific differences in the 6.0 where it really matters as far as the engine wear? All those issues are about unilaterally the same. Ideally, depending on how long we're talking, what you might decide that you want to do is you might decide that you want to put oil down the cylinders and let that oil go ahead and permeate and penetrate and go down the sides of the rings and re-lubricate those rings so it's not just ring material against the side of a combustion chamber with absolutely nothing in the world of lubrication. And so that would make a difference. You just spray some oil down there, wait a couple of days, and then enable some rotation that way. And there's lots of ways to do that. I mean, you can yank the glow plugs and spray it through there, put a little spritz in there, something like that to just protect yourself when it's sitting. The other thing you can do as far as dry rot on tires and all this kind of stuff, tires fail from just sitting. They like to be rotated. They like to be warmed up. You will get a longer service life. You will get less cracking out of them if you go ahead and figure out some way to protect them from UV, to protect them from just sitting and getting a ball, a flat spot on them, all this kind of stuff. All of which will come out with driving, depending on how bad it is. But these are the considerations. Do you want to take the weight off the suspension before you put it in storage? Well, yeah, that'd be great. But do you want to take it totally off? Probably not, just mostly off. So there's a little bit of tension against those springs and whatnot. So that's the conversation. There's probably a couple other elements that I'm missing, very frankly, but those are the big ones anyway. If I've forgotten something, put in the comments below, and I'll opine on that as well and say, yep, that sounds good or not. As the case may be, most of them it's going to sound good. I don't mean to say or not, like I'm somehow judging you, not at all. There's lots of ways to prevent damage. I would say the number one way, don't kill your FICM by going ahead and charging up the batteries before you ever ask it to go. And don't ever let your batteries fall below an 80% state of charge just anyway, because you're causing irreparable damage to the batteries that way. And batteries are money, and so I'd rather not have to sell you batteries. But just use your head. Common sense goes a long way. And maybe go ahead and realize also that your tires probably aren't as inflated as they used to be. And so, go around there with a tire pressure gauge and take care of that. And don't forget about your spare. And you do all these kinds of things and life just gets a whole lot better. So I hope this helps. FICMRepair.com. We're all this together.